Hey, everybody. It is that time again. Welcome to the Mosaic Podcast, where we allow you to be a fly on the wall in conversations that you might never, ever expect to experience. Today, I'm hoping this is going to be an extraordinary conversation. I know Dr. Morgan Oakes all of about 2 weeks. He was kind enough to have me on his podcast, and what I found in that experience was this is a gentle, beautiful man who held the space for me to be able to share a message. And I can only hope that I can return that favor for him by introducing him in as beautiful a way as he did me to his audience. Let me tell you a little bit about him. I'm not a big bio guy. Like, I ask people to send me 50 words of bio because I don't really care who a person is or what they've done. Really more what I want to do is have you experiencing them on the show. But I think it's important to get a sense of it. Dr. Morgan, I'm going to call you Dr. Morgan. Is that okay?
Morgan's perfect.
Morgan.
Whatever's perfect for you, Danny, works for me. So.
I love Morgan. So there you go. There's that guy that I love. But for the introduction, Dr. Morgan Oakes is a TedX speaker. He's the host of the Intuitive Wisdom for Modern Transformation podcast, which I already told you I had the honor to be on. He's a gifted visionary who shares what he's learned as a transformational speaker, a high performance coach, and a shamanic practitioner. He inspires audiences to trust their intuition and to courageously live a life of inspired action. We're going to put these links in the show notes, but already what he wants to do is he comes giving gifts. So for those of you who are listening and are inspired, which all of you will be, I want to invite you to take him up on the offer to either have a free 45-minute training on the 6 keys to living your top life, or a 30-minute complimentary coaching session with Morgan around the pillars of high performance. Please note that you heard about him through the Mosaic podcast, because he doesn't do this for everybody. And Morgan, without further ado, welcome to the Mosaic podcast, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, it's my honor. It's great to be here, Danny.
Fabulous. So what we do in these podcasts, and you probably have heard, is we start out a little bit by just not showing the public persona of who you are, but allowing people to get to know you as a person. So some of the questions I ask want to just get behind the veil and just share with people who you are. So when you were growing up as a kid, what did you always dream that you wanted to be?
Oh, cool question. The honest answer is I wanted to either be racing dirt bikes or snowmobiles or BMX bikes.
Wow. And how old were you at that point? Were you like
young, 5, 6, 7 years old? Yeah, up until probably middle school at least. I loved just going fast on things, and those 3 things were I had a possibility to be on them, and I just loved them.
Wow. And so if you were to take a look at that now, what part of who you were as a kid wanting to ride bikes fast, dirt bikes and race and go that way, what part of that shows up in your life today?
So a few different ways, dude. Great questions already. So my spiritual teachers will repeat to me the phrase, Morgan, take the slow road. So there's a part of me, whether it's personal growth or spirituality or, exploring a new island or whatever it is, I have this like level of ambition and like speed to it.
Yeah.
So I think that's something I try to like really make sure I'm doing things intelligently. And, I kind of talked about that edge where things break loose a little bit before we went live. And I always tell my coaching clients, and like, if I'm coaching somebody around speaking or something else, all the magic happens when we're just about to lose control, taking that corner in a car, right? Or whether we're like pushing that growth edge in a relationship or a business or whatever it is. And so I think that part of me that loved that dangerous edge where you're about to lose it, on, you know, like a dirt bike, a snowmobile, a BMX bike, I think that's also where the magic happens in transformation and personal growth. And so I think I'm wired to ride that edge on a little bit.
And have you ever gone over the edge? Have
Oh,
you ever
dear God.
lost it?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean,
And-
sometimes that sounds like breakup. Sometimes that sounds like, you know, losing a business or a bankruptcy. Sometimes that sounds like, you know, learning my limits of physical exhaustion or, you know, overwhelm in business. So yeah, it's something I've done a lot of work to really find where my true edges are. And I've missed a few of those corners.
Yeah. And so, like, I want to get really real with you because I love you and I believe that you have the heart of a warrior that can go to this place.
Yeah.
I want to get behind the beauty of the words that it's outside of our comfort zones that magic happened, because those are such nice sayings.
Yeah.
But outside of our comfort zones, we're scared as hell.
Yeah.
And when we go over the edge and we crash and burn, can you tell me where the magic is in that moment?
Well, I mean, we don't know what's out there till we get there. Right. And there's a great quote. I see it a lot these days, like whether they say a man, a woman, a business person, you know, you don't really know what somebody's made of till they're in hot water. There's like that tea metaphor.
Right.
And I think that's true. And I think that's where the magic comes in, is when you've gone a bit too far, like the really beautiful lessons come through. And it's not always medicine we want to swallow. It's not always a mirror that we want held up in front of us. And again, I feel like, you know, a lot of times there's times where I try to back out of it later and I wish that I wouldn't have asked for it.
Yeah.
But over and over again, whether it's, you know, ceremony or personal growth or, you know, asking for a deep level of honesty from, you know, a business coach, a friend, a counselor, a family member, I'm always wanting to know the truth of what's there. And that magic, you know, sometimes, you know, I'm hands in the air and I just have this like, you know, big grin, you know, that's just this joy of experience and growth. And other times it looks like tears, it looks like breakdown, it looks like really leaning onto, you know, into those relationships for support. But I think that's where the wisdom and the personal growth really is best sometimes.
Let me try and go a step deeper with you because I love you. I mean, you know, you're my buddy and we haven't had a lot of time together, but you know, I love you.
Absolutely.
I want to get you out from behind the teacher.
Okay.
And I want to get you into the place of the human being.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you a personal story just that I can share with you, because maybe that will help to open up the space that I'm trying to hold for you right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even more than the space I want to hold for you, for the listeners that are listening who are confronted all the time with those places they're scared of, and they hear the magic is behind those places, but they've been burned to a crisp and they're scared to death to go to those places. I'm going to tell you the personal story. A year ago, I decided I did not want to sell anybody my products. I didn't want to sell my services. I was sick and tired of being sold to. I was sick and tired of looking at people as clients. I was sick and tired of going after people and just having an agenda in my conversations and building up. And I just got off a phone call with a woman today who was just trying to sell me. And I said, I could feel from the minute you contacted me, you wanted to sell me. And I'm not interested in that. What's really trying to happen on this phone call? And she had a deep emptiness inside of herself that she didn't want to look at, but her soul was yelling at me to talk to her about this emptiness that tries to cover itself up by selling other people on things that she herself doesn't even have, which was my story. I was trying to sell things to people that I didn't have, because I said to everybody, you got to trust in God and you got to believe God will take care of you. But in the end of the day, I wasn't doing that. I was saying, I trust in you, but I better go out and find clients. I better go out and do this because I don't believe you'll find a way to feed me and take care of me. That was about a year ago. The experiment is not over. I don't know how it's going to end, but so far for the year, we're still surviving. We still live in a beautiful home. We still have a great family. We're still doing what we're doing. I don't know where it's going to go, but I wake up sometimes with sweat pouring down my back.
Yeah.
saying, what in the world is going to happen? How are we going to make it through this moment? And most of the time now, I speak to my wife and she says, I can't believe how far you've come and how much you trust in this. But there are moments where I say, you can't spend any more money. We don't have them, like I lose it.
Yeah.
So what I want to get, because you're not just an average guy, you've done a lot of things. You're looking at this stuff. What I want to get is real data, real places where that stuff has happened to you, where you can say, I know it's scary as hell. You're not going to know how it's going to end. I don't know if it's going to end well for you. But I know one thing, and this is what I can tell you from my own direct experience. If I don't do it, it's certainly not going to end well for me. Because I'm just going to be a make-pretend version of myself. What I want you to do is talk to me about that place and talk to the people that are listening. That what gives you the courage to go that place when you don't want to, when you don't believe it, when you say you believe it, but you don't really believe it. How do you get the courage to keep going?
Yeah. I'm going to give a few different answers because I don't always use the same tool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I was like, okay, if he asks me what's that edge for me, like, is it business, is it relationship, like, it's especially in this world, you have that facade that goes out on social media, and you send all the pretty pictures out, and I'm a coach, and I'm a this, and I'm a that, and the reality is, I think all of us, if we're honest, we have that growth edge in that place where it's not as magic on the inside as it appears maybe on the outside, or maybe opposite, right? So for me, one of those edges right now is around my spirituality. I'm a deeply spiritual guy, and I'm trying to find a place where I can integrate that with the part of me that loves research and the high performance coaching and the doctor piece. But I'm afraid if I get too woo-woo that I'll lose some of my credibility and that life will be a struggle.
Yeah.
Right. And so, in some, like a place like that, there's times where, I might lean into people that are really boost me up, that peer group that, that would support me around that. And I might have to get myself amped up, and then I just take a big leap off of a cliff. Like I do something that I can't really pull back.
Yeah.
Sometimes I use that tool for courage, and I always trust that my wings will come in. Sometimes it's really, really close to the ground, but they usually show up. Another way sometimes I do it is more of the like dipping my toe in the hot water. Like I'll do just a little bit. Like I haven't left business A for business B that's not created yet, or I haven't. I may not fully jump off the cliff, but I'll start trying it so I can start getting little successes, little proof to myself that there's a trustworthy landing waiting for me. I'll lean into, what I call like, modeling or mentoring, not like getting into the unhealthy levels of comparison, but getting into like who out there is already doing it. Yeah. So that I can trust that there's a place for me in the world that might look like that, so I lean into a bunch of different things to try to be encouraged.
Yeah. And I completely put you on the spot, and I didn't mean to do that because I went down quick.
Yeah.
But I think what brought me to that place is I'm sitting here listening to your answers, and I'm listening to you, and I'm listening to myself and saying, what the hell are you doing taking this guy? You don't know him that well, to just push him this far. I want to know that 5-year-old kid that got on that bike recklessly, with reckless abandon, that raced down places that he had no idea if he was going to be able to master or not. He had no idea if he was going to slip and fall. But he had the courage to just get to that place. And when I asked you, like, what in that brings over to what's in here, there's something so much more in it now that can be unpacked.
Yeah.
Because that kid in you is fearless. That kid in all of us is fearless. Like you are me and you are every single person listening here. Because I bet all of us did things as kids that we would say like, wow, well, we would never do that now, right?
Yeah, my poor mom. Yeah. my proud dad and my poor mom.
Exactly.
Right. And I got to say, like, you're tapping into it, and I know that you're there because I could easily fall into tears right now. So that 5-year-old in me trusted in the outcome and was okay waking up underneath a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Unconscious. He was okay waking up in an ambulance on the way to the emergency room. Also happened. I was fearless. And I'll tell you, business is the first place in my life that I gave an A for effort, but didn't get the grade I was hoping for. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, totally. Oh, I can do this. Like, I'm going for it. And dude, my first small business it was hard. It's the first time that me just being authentically me didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to. And I'm still in recovery of that because there's big things that I want to do, that business is the vehicle for the transformation I'm wanting to create. And I'm still, I look at somebody like you that's done some really, really big business things. Business hasn't been my strong suit. It's not where my victory column has been. It's been where my struggle has been. And so I'm still trying to find how to harness the courage of that 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Because he's necessary to create the transformation I'm wanting. And I'm building up more and more little success check marks in my life so that I can trust in that area. Because that's been the disconnect. That's where I lost my 5-year-old has been in business.
So thank you for seeing me better than I actually am. Because my situation now, after not working for a year and after pushing away business because I haven't wanted to sell or be sold, is tenuous. I wake up sometimes and I wonder how we're going to make the bills pay. But in this moment right now, everything is okay. The sun's shining. We're 3 blocks from the ocean. We have a nice house. The kids are happy. My wife is happy, and life is good. We eat. God knows I eat more than I need to, right? Because of the size of my tummy. I guess what I want to try and find, because you've done a lot of exploration.
Uh-huh.
I definitely want to touch on where your shamanic work has taken you. And I definitely want to look at how people who are listening might be able to look at the same thing we're looking at right now, but not see it the way everybody else sees it. Because we sometimes fall into the trap of seeing it the way everybody else sees it too, when we don't buy that world. Mm-hmm. That isn't the world that I don't wait. Oh my God. We live by the ocean and there's like all these helicopters that come by. Now there's 3 of them coming by together. Like sorry for all the noise.
It's a wild day in Encinitas.
It is a wild day in Encinitas. I don't know what's going on. If they come and pick me up by helicopter, just carry on. But what I want to try and get to is that the weight of the world pushes us to go back to beliefs that we don't believe. And how do we hold true? How do you even discover those, even now as we're talking? Because part of me senses the sense of, I know more than I'm doing.
Yeah.
I know what I believe, but I don't feel capable of that belief, which is exactly my surrender experiment. Like Michael Singer says, my surrender experiment is, I know God is there to take care of me. I know it will happen. I just don't believe it sometimes.
Yeah.
And how do we believe it when we don't believe it?
Yeah. So maybe the way I would dive into that is, on a certain level, my spiritual awakening was during a time of trauma. And actually, I grew up in Wyoming. So my spiritual awakening, very apropos for a Wyoming kid, it sounds like a bad country song. Lost my girl, lost my dog, lost my house, wrecked my truck. Like, all those things happened. And then all of a sudden, synchronicities start happening. I start meeting these very, very strange people. And at that time, I was this 30-year-old dude who had a lot in common with a lot of like 50-year-old women. They were going through a divorce and kind of this like midlife, life isn't what we thought it was. And I was at the exact same place. So I'm in all these like personal growth things with these like 50-year-old women. And I would say, what happened for me and the way that I started tuning into something that requires more trust than, something that we can put in our hands was the little things, right? Like synchronicity shows up like, oh, grabbing an umbrella on a sunny day. And when you don't do it, you get rained on, and then you go, oh, I heard the message, but I didn't trust. Yeah. Right. For me, it was working construction on a house I was remodeling at the time. Like, oh, grab the hammer for this project that, happens on the other side of the house. And my conscious mind was like, I don't need a hammer. I know what tools I need. And then granted, I get to the other side of the house and I'm like, oh, I needed the hammer. Yeah. So for me, the trust in the bigger stuff happened with the little stuff. And it was really about paying attention to it, trying to take action on it, acknowledging it, whether I listened or not, really acknowledging it and making it real. And my TEDx talk's called Learning the Language of Dude. And for me, I didn't have a healthy relationship with God. Spirit was something that a couple of hippie chicks I knew talked about. And so for me, the intuitions and the synchronicities, I needed to personify who I was chatting with, and it certainly wasn't God or spirit. And so I was like, dude, what the heck's going on here? Right. And so for me, I think a starting place for that capital T trust is building little t trust with listening to those little things, just trying to see where those little areas of support were showing up in my life anyway. Yeah. And that helped me to trust in some of the bigger leaps of faith, Fabulous. But I couldn't have done it without that bridge, I don't think.
So I want to ask listeners now just to mentally take a note. And are there places in your life where you're hearing messages, but you're not trusting them? Where you're hearing voices that come to you, that have come inside your head or outside your head. You have intuitive flashes, you have a gut feeling, you have a sense that something should happen and it's not happening, and you don't listen to it. Listen to what Morgan's saying. Because you don't build a house with one brick. It's a brick upon a brick upon a brick upon a brick. And you got to get those foundations there of trusting the little stuff to give you room to. Great point. Yeah. What I want to also ask you about is the sense of emptiness that's needed in order to get refilled. Yeah. And how scared we are of emptiness. You do a lot of coaching, you do a lot of work with people, you do a lot of work with executives. One of the things I find in the work that I've done with people is we are so freaking afraid of our house crumbling down and being empty, but we're so unhappy living in the house we're living in. Yeah. Alan Watts says it great. He says, we go out to make money so that we can continue doing what we hate doing. So we'll have enough money to go out to make money to continue doing what we hate doing. And impressing people that what we're doing is good, right? It's a game we're stuck in. Yeah. How do you deal with emptiness? Whether it's a breakup, a loss of a job, a change of something that you thought should happen, but it doesn't. How do you deal with that place where you are suddenly completely empty?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I want to make sure everybody stays on the journey with us. And sometimes the intuition and synchronicity stuff gets a little too woo-woo. Probably not for your audience, but I would like to put out there, when I first woke up spiritually, I started studying quantum physics to explain it. Yeah. Right? Because I was such a left brain kind of guy. Great research on intuition. There's a book called Radical Remissions. One of the top 9 predictors of whether or not you'll survive a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. One of them is intuition. Wow. There's some great things out there, and we all have that body wisdom of like hair stands up on our neck or some of those things. So for those people that need research and need some more grounded things, it's definitely out there. If you want more resources, reach out to me. I love supporting people and them finding that connection for themselves. And to answer that emptiness piece, A couple things. I think sometimes it's unfortunate that we need to kind of hit rock bottom to like
Definitely.
look outside of ourselves. But for a lot of, we hear a lot of people's stories, and that's how it shows up. Um, I think for me, there's a resting state. Let's say we've got a 0 to 10 scale.
Yep.
If I'm below like a 3, dude, I'm in survival. Let's just make it easy. If I'm below 5, I'm in survival. And when I'm in survival, and I've been in survival even in the last couple of months, it looks like gluten-free Oreos. It looks like, I'm not getting too crazy, but like gluten-free Oreos, gluten-free pizza, kombucha, dark chocolate, a lot of superhero movies, stand-up comedy. Like I got to do what I got to do just to get back up to a 5. And for some people, when they're too far under the gun, I say, do what you need to get re-energized, and then change your diet, then get into exercise, then do what you can to raise your vibration. But once it gets up above that, then I start looking for resources, and sometimes I lean into people that know more than me. A lot of times that's what I do. Maybe it's a spiritual teacher, a book, a whatever. But then I start looking for like, what's my biggest pain, and what do I think the potential solution is for it. And sometimes that just gives you one tool that deals with that one specific pain. And sometimes you end up finding that thing that makes like 4 or 5 other parts of your life get better. But yeah, sometimes when I'm dealing with the emptiness, I just do what's necessary to like get by and get my energy back up. And then at a certain point, I make sure I don't forget about the emptiness, because I also see that with people. When there's a pain point, they want help. As soon as the pain point goes away, we develop this amnesia, and then they don't do anything about it. And we know that it's still waiting for them there, So when I identify it, I get really clear about it. I get into a place where I can actually, be, create some momentum in my life, and I don't forget about it. I keep working on it.
Perfect.
So
Let's segue a little out of some of the places where I've taken you into some of the things where you can take other people.
okay.
Tell us a little bit about who you are now and what you do.
Yeah, I have a buddy that's described me as one well-educated vagabond. And which, to be honest, and just for the listeners out there that haven't read your book, I would kind of describe you the same way.
Yes, absolutely.
I love your story.
What do you mean there's a listener out there that hasn't read my book? You better go out there and get the mosaic, doggone it.
They got to get on it. I got to say, like a few days ago, because I'm dealing with some heart things right now, not health heart things, but emotional heart things. And dude, your book was so good. But what I would say about who I am and what I'm doing, I have a chiropractic office 2 days a week. So I kind of went mechanical engineering to chiropractic, added in physical therapy. And then we know that the unconscious mind controls a lot of health, right? I remember a few years ago, I was at a research thing, and they said of the top 10 predictors for chronic low back pain, only 3 are physical.
Wow.
Right. So if we're pounding away on these spines, but not addressing the mind, then we're missing something. So 2 days a week, that's who I am. And then I blend energy work and shamanic work into that as well, because, sometimes a thoracic adjustment is chiropractic, and sometimes it's the backside of the heart chakra. Yeah. Right. There's a lot of overlapping systems happening there. And then 3 days a week, I love doing transformational speaking. I love doing high performance coaching and blending that with soul evolution type work. Yeah. I have a podcast, Intuitive Wisdom for Modern Transformation.
Great podcast. If you haven't listened to it, go on and listen to it.
Yeah. And your episode was amazing. I'm really grateful for that. And so, yeah, half my life, I guess, is more focused on supporting people's physical bodies. And then the other half of my life is really helping with mental, emotional, spiritual.
So I'm going to assume for the time being that most people have heard about the word shaman, but most people have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
Would you take a few minutes and let us, what is a shaman to you? What does that mean? What is shamanic work? What does a shaman do? What tradition
Yeah.
is it from? How did you get
Yes.
involved in it? You know, all of that stuff.
Yeah. So, I consider myself a shamanic practitioner. I'm in the practice of trying to utilize some of those tools. Um, to be honest, it was part of my spiritual awakening. All of a sudden, I just started doing things and knowing things that I'd never heard, seen, read before. I was really blessed at that time to have some very perceptive people around me that could say, "Oh, that's Reiki, that's Qigong, that's shamanism. Stop doing that. You're going to kill yourself." Uh, and then what I found was, and I really believe that if we go after our passions, things tend to work out. And I just got so passionate about the topic. I would, thank you, Barnes and Noble. I would go there for like 8, 9 hours. I would read 6 books. I would buy 6 books, another 6 books, because I felt so guilty about the first 6 I had read. I'd spend 12 hours, searching, the internet, looking at things I had never heard before that day. And so that's really where it started for me. So if I'm being, completely transparent, I feel like it's a lot of like past life remembering that just
Yeah.
showed up. Um, and as far as what it is, the word shaman actually comes from Siberian culture originally, and it's just been kind of blanketed onto the rest of the world. A really easy way, I think, to describe it is that every culture, every tribe, every religion around the planet really has a way to connect to that unseen world, right?
Yeah.
And when we go into like quantum physics, we know 80% of what's real in the universe we can't even measure yet,
Yeah.
let alone see.
Yeah.
And so the practice of shamanism is really trying to help support people in that unseen world.
Love
um,
that.
yeah
Love that. And so when you invite people into the world of the unseen, which is really the undercurrent of what the mosaic is also, so no doubt why you liked it, right? Because it's done in such a simple way there, because Mo's looking for these people to show him heaven. And
yeah
he finds a street worker and a blind woman and a garbage man and a homeless guy, and he wonders what the heck is he doing talking to these people. And when he listens to him, he sees them completely different than he saw them when he first came up. And
mm-hmm.
when it happens over and over again, he sees that what he sees is only what he sees. It isn't at all what is.
Mm-hmm.
And he asks himself, God, what would happen if I could see what I don't see? And at that moment, he meets a monk who unzips the sky and walks him through to a parallel reality where he meets the wise one
Mm-hmm.
who gives him an experience of the mosaic. So, but those are scary moments. Like most of us don't even want to deal with the world that we see. They're coming to rescue us. Let's take a pause.
It's about time. We've been praying for that for a few
Right,
decades, right?
right. Here they come. They're pulling me out. But most of us have some trouble. Wow. Let's hold off. We'll cut this out. Most of us have some difficulty. Perfect. My apologies.
Oh, no worries.
All this is all cut out still because they're gone. If it weren't so hot, I'd just shut the doors, but it's hot. So let's get back. Most of us don't even have the ability to look at the world that we can see and make sense of it. When you invite people to see the world that they don't want to see or they don't see, what response do you get from people when you say the shamanic journey is about seeing the world you don't see?
Yeah, I think you meet people where they're at. I think that's one of my gifts. I can talk to a business person, a lawyer, I can talk to all these very heady intellectual people, and I can meet them with their language where they're at. I can talk to very religious people. I can talk to spiritual people. I can talk to yogis and quantum physicists. And And we all have these experiences where, when I speak to audiences, I'll say, like, the whole hand raise thing, like, who here is, ever had a time where you're like, man, what's Matt been up to? I haven't talked to that dude in a decade, and the phone rings and who's there? And the audience is like, Matt's on the phone. Like,
Right.
right. Or, we big business people, and you've been in big business deals. Well, why did you make that decision? The numbers didn't add up. As gut instinct. Or I wouldn't touch that deal with a 10-foot pole, or we've got languaging built around it. We all have experiences of it. So, usually people come to me telling a story where I just kind of mirror the words back to them, and people know, like, it's built into our DNA that we know that all these things are true, but we're in a culture that has prided ourselves on our intellectual capacities for so long that we've kind of pushed those things under. And even before that, didn't work out too well to be a witch there for a few hundred years. So, right. So we got some training to not listen to it on a number of different levels. And so, normally I meet people where they're at, and I offer to support them to, it's either getting away from a pain or moving into a bliss. Right. And I just give them an option that seems right. And some of them, they get peer coaching, or they get neuro-linguistic programming, or they get, another thing I love, the same thing my high performance coach tells me to do is the same thing my doctor tells me to do, is the same thing my spiritual teacher tells me to do, 30-minute walk in nature.
Wow.
Right. So a lot of times I meet people with the process and the way that they need it, because my goal for them is, it's always that I want for them what they want for themselves.
Totally.
And so I just, cool, you want to go there? See if this helps.
So if I were coming to you in your role as, and you're not saying you're a shaman, but you're on the journey of that journey, of a shamanistic journey experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I were coming to you for a journey in the shamanistic experience, how might the counsel you give me be different than the counsel you would give me as a high performance coach? Or would it be? Because what you just said is you get the same information from multiple sources sometimes. But what would it look like? How would it shape itself? What would the practices look like? Why would I come to you on the shamanic journey? Would I come to you about, is this a good idea to close a deal? Or is this a good person to work with? Or I'm layering on questions I don't want to. So first, how would the two experiences be different?
It really depends. Honestly, a lot of times at this point, I have somebody just do a free half-hour call with me. Let me know what's going on in your life, your business, your relationship. And usually I have a pretty good idea of what's necessary. I have some people come to me and they're like, oh my God, I want to launch this business and I need your coaching help for that. And they come in and life isn't as clean as it should be. And I'm like, how about we do some soul work and you clean up some of your foundations so you're not launching a business off of quicksand, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't always look the same. But for, the other thing I'll do is, we might do high performance coaching, plus we include a few extra sessions, because sometimes when you show up, we're not going to talk about productivity. We're going to talk about this other piece. So it can really always look, it looks like what it needs to for each person.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the things as you were talking, like a big word, I'll get visions, right? And the word that showed up in bright lights was curiosity.
Yeah.
Right. Because a lot of us, we weren't raised in a culture where this is common.
Yeah.
And when this stuff starts happening, there's a lot of labels that we could put on it that are derogatory, a lot of labels that have judgment. And I think a lot of times I'll just say, wow, that was curious. Right. And then it allows me to keep noticing it and seeing how, if I pay attention, maybe it helps. Maybe staying curious about how, if I don't pay attention, it doesn't help. And
So when I think of a shamanic journey, somehow linked, whether it's the first, second, third, 10th thought, ayahuasca comes into the equation. because so many
Yep.
shamans that I know use plant medicine of ayahuasca, sort of a hallucinogenic experience that retches your stomach out and people end up throwing up, but having these incredibly deep experiences, you know, that people are scared to death to go on, but so happy they did when they come back. Is that a part of the practice that you might engage people in?
So for shamanism cross culturally, if people are interested in some of the kind of cross cultural research on shamanism, there's a book called The Fourfold Way by Angeles Arian, and she was, I forget her college education, but basically she researched shamanism across the world. And basically, I think how she says it is, what's true about all shamanism, like 80% of shamanism is true across the board for all cultures. Like there's repetitive drumming, there might be fasting, there
Right.
might be these different ways of tapping into that. Only about 20% of the cultures use entheogens like ayahuasca, like mushrooms, like peyote. It's not part of what I do with people. And if you talk to like a yogi or a meditation people, you can get to those places through meditation and mindfulness as well.
Totally.
A lot of times what I tell people is, those medicines are kind of a fast path.
Yeah.
They can help to open some things up and again speed up a process. um, but for me, some of my shamanic things I just do for somebody. It's kind of like receiving a chiropractic adjustment.
Yeah.
Some of it is like through a guided shamanic journey, where they're going on it. And I would say in the last few years, a lot of things that, let's say 5 years ago, I would just do for somebody, now what I'm actually getting from my guides and allies in the process is, no, teach them how to do it.
Fabulous.
And my shamanic teacher has gone as far as to say the time of the shaman is over. Like all these tools belong to all of us.
Yeah.
And so it's about, I think maybe the shadow side of religion is that it puts itself between us and God. And that's probably a piece of shamanism that maybe we're kind of evolving past as well. So I'm finding that a lot of the tools that I use for myself, I'm now being instructed to teach my clients, so that I'm giving them I'm teaching them how to fish rather than just giving them a couple of them for the day. Right.
Fabulous. Fabulous. What surprised you about what you're doing?
Dude, everything. I grew up in a tiny little town of under 10,000 people in Wyoming. Like I couldn't even have imagined this life. And earlier today, I was talking to somebody that I worked with 11, is that true? 12 or 13 years ago in business. And I called this number that got faxed over to me, and I'm talking to her and I'm like, did you ever work with some dude in Fort Collins? And she pulls me up on her CRM and it was me.
Wow.
So when I was telling her, I was like, oh my God, that feels like a few lifetimes ago.
Yeah.
And so it just feels like life is evolving much faster. We know that's true with technology. I think we're seeing that can be true in, relationships. I think things are evolving very quick. And what I would say that at this point is kind of a surprise for me is that one of my growth edges right now is about not working so hard. Right.
Fabulous.
I was raised to work hard, and I've always thought that was going to be my way to the top. And I think the lesson that's really coming to me is that it's about helping, supporting other people and doing their gifts, me working less, me being more focused on conversations like this and doing the visionary aspects, and that I actually need to work less hard so I can be more effective when I am working.
Yeah. Of everything that you've been given and of all the things you say, if you were to boil it down to one thing, what would be the one thing you would want people to know?
That we all have all our own answers. Myself included, I think all of us, we spend so much time looking outside of ourselves for the solution, the pathway, the guru, the answer. And for everybody, I would say just slow down, and start listening and just stay curious and see how much wisdom has already been trying to get out of you, you know?
Love that. And so that so resonates with me.
Yeah.
And it's so, I believe exactly those same words. And so what do you say to people who are in the practice of helping people find that information in themselves when really all they have to do is go within and find it in themselves? Like, why is there a need for someone to come for coaching? Why is there a need for a shaman? Why is there a need to go to someone to teach you? Why is there any of that? If all that information is there in front of you, because I think that's a question people will ask. And how do you make a living telling people that everything they need is inside of them?
Yeah. Well, I think with your podcast, I think you offer it as an audio. I think you were saying it'll probably get posted on YouTube as well.
Yep.
And some podcasts also get transcribed so people can read it as a blog, right? Like, people want what they want. And I think some people want a teacher, you know, some people want something exterior to lean into. I think the other reason is, for me, I want to go to the expert because I know that it'll reduce the amount of missteps, you know, may speed up the actual acquisition of me moving towards what I'm wanting to move towards. And I also think some of these things are training wheels. You know, you may need a trainer when you first start working out at a given gym to figure out all the equipment.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, once you figure out what are the muscles I need to stretch or strengthen and how's the equipment work, then that's the point where we no longer need those training wheels, you know? So there's a number of different answers. And I also think, you know, season, reason, or a lifetime. There's people that I've worked with for lots of different seasons, for lots of different reasons. And at a certain point, I also describe personal growth as being like, you know, like this piece of, you know, wood or marble that we're just using the sandpaper to remove what's not our truth.
Yeah.
And some pieces of sandpaper, I think, wear out, right? And then we need another piece of sandpaper to move forward in our evolution. So I think there's a lot of reasons that we still lean into people. And I think if we were truly ascended, right? If we stepped into ascended mastership, or, you know, whatever other word you want to apply to it right now, we wouldn't need to do that. We would just be able to lean in. But ultimately, I think that's where the ultimate truth is. And it's, you know, I think we're using all those exterior things to help us learn how to access that better as well.
I want to thank you for taking the time to be here. And I think this question really is a pivotal question, because we play a lot of mind games with ourselves, and we're smart enough to dance ourselves around the circle of the hole that we have to go into without going into it thinking that we're there sometimes. And there are definitely times when we need a teacher. You would never be a professional athlete without being coached in your sport. You would never go into a business without having somebody teach you the ABCs of business. And yet we think the spiritual life is such a thing where if we have all the answers, why do we need anybody else? And yet we do have all the answers. And the truth of the matter is we don't need anybody else. If we're willing to confront ourselves, to find our hiding places, to find those places where we dance on the edges rather than allowing ourselves to be pushed into the hole, where we deal with the pain and the fear and the anguish without running away from it. Sometimes we just need somebody to stand there and say, hey, I'm holding you. You got this. I'm not teaching you anything. I'm just holding the space for you. You're safe. Jump. And one of the things that I think you're exceptionally good at, and I'm going to encourage people who are listening to get in touch with you, to take advantage of that 30-minute time, is Morgan is someone that is a sensitive man who holds space for you. And you may not need knowledge right now, which he has, but you may need someone to just hold the space to say, no matter how many times you fall, I'm going to help you get up because I know you can do this on your own. because there's no doubt about it. We fall down and we fall down and we fall down and we fall down. And if maybe I'm just exceptional in my lack of learning, that I've fallen down so many damn times that it's hard to get up. Sometimes it's nice to just have somebody's hand say, "Hey, come on, I got you. You've been working hard. I'll help you." Doesn't mean that I need them to get up. It just means that it's nice to have somebody's hand come and do that. And so when you find someone you resonate with, go to those people. Allow them, because the work you're going to do, and I said it to this woman I was working with, she came on the call wanting to sell me. I had no desire even to talk to her. I didn't even want, I not even to sell her. But I said, find someone that you trust that won't let you get away with your BS. Because you're full of BS right now. And you're talking yourself all around the fact that you're not going to do anything. And I know you're not going to do anything. And I know you're not going to go out and pay somebody to do this. And I know you've hired somebody to do it and they're not doing it for you. And I know you don't have the courage to tell them they're not and to ask them for what you want. Find that person that can actually deliver for you what you want. I believe Morgan may be one of those people for you. And that's why I had him on the podcast.
Yeah.
I want to close by asking you the question we ask everybody. When you take a peek out the window of your home and you see the world that's around you with all that it has and all that it doesn't have, is this the world you always dreamed of handing over to your children and to your children's children?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
It probably doesn't surprise you that 97% of the people that I ask that to answer the same way. And for the 3% that answer it is, I always invite them to please tell me the world you see, because I so want to see that world.
Yeah.
And I want my people to see that world. But what's one thing that you would do to someone who looks out the window and says, this isn't the world I always dreamed of giving to my kids. And if I don't do anything, I know the world's not going to change. It is going to change. It's only going to get worse because the momentum of where it's going is going to take it in that direction.
Yeah.
What's one thing you would say to them that they could do right now that would affect the world and that change?
Yeah. So I think, one of the things I talked about earlier was if my vibration's below a 5 out of 10, dude, I'm just in recovery. And I would say for the people that don't feel good about the world that they see, start finding the beauty, because there is a lot, the teacher that says that 80% of everything is always working.
Yeah.
Right. And if we weren't at 80%, we've seen Mad Max movies. We know what probably less than 80% working looks like. Right. So I would say lean into gratitude and really acknowledging what is good out there so you can lean into it. And so you can keep your energy up to where you can be of service to others. And then the next thing that I think is more proactive in that place of healing is find something that you believe in or that you're passionate about and lean into it. For me, for a number of years, and I know people may have judgment about this. This is not something that I typically share outside of close friends, but for years I'm like, oh, I really got to get down to the soup kitchen and I got to support my community that way.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm not passionate about it. It was a should. I thought it would sound nice. But what I realized is me, doing things like this, me doing free things on Facebook, me, honestly, one of the things I wanted to line up is going to do like shamanic work with the homeless.
Beautiful.
To impart healing there. So I think for people, if they get clear, well, and I signed up for your Mosaic Swarm as well, which if people
Fabulous.
don't know about it, they're not listening, right? But yeah, dude, find something that you believe in, find something that you're passionate about, and exert your effort there. Because I'm not an ecologist. I love the water, but I'm not the guy to fight for water rights. I'm not the guy for a lot of these things, but for the things I'm passionate about, that the well for that energy is bottomless. So I would say pick that thing, get clear about it, and take an action step.
Fabulous. Morgan, thank you so much for being on the show. I just want to take a minute and summarize sort of how you've touched me today, if you allow me to.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is a gentle humility and humanity that comes through this man that you've been listening to, that I really want to invite you to discover more about. So many people come on telling you the answers. So many people come on boasting about all the things they've done. So few people have the vulnerability to sit in front of you and say, I'm still working it out. I still have some things to discover here. I'm walking through this. And I want you to experience what I experienced by just giving you a gift of doing something for you, which is a half-hour session with you free of charge, to just see if we can explore where we're going and what we're doing. I want to invite you to re-look at little areas where you can make significant impact, not necessarily in the world, but in your own momentum. Momentum is moment to moment to moment. It's what we do in the moments over and over and over again that creates momentum. And if you listened over the course of the conversation, there were more than a couple times where Morgan said, find those few areas, find that little area where you listen to that voice inside, find that little area where you feel something inside you, find that place in you that makes you want to move. Those are momentum builders. Those are things that will change, will take you out of the humdrum of your life and will bring you to a place where you'll start to see the world differently. The way he closed up by saying gratitude, just have, in a world where you don't even like the way it is, where you don't want to hand over to your children that world, 80% of it still is better than most people ever dreamed possible. Be happy for those 80%. Find those areas where you can celebrate and rejoice and just feel how glorious the world we do have is, rather than sit on the corners of where the places aren't working. It's one of the things I talk about in the mosaic. When you have a mosaic, the pieces don't come together side to side. Sometimes they just come together tip to tip, meaning that 358% of the piece on a 360-degree circle is disconnected. But when you have just that connection, it's enough to connect you to everything else that's happening. And connection is everything. Connection to ourselves, connection to our source, connection to our purpose, connection to the people around us. All of those things make our world work. I can't encourage you enough to do as Morgan said also. Join the mosaicswarm.com. We just did an incredible experiment where we had people swarm with us. And it was the most amazing experience because we found people of diverse opinions coming into the room and finding harmony. Were you on that call with us, or were you able to make that?
No, I wasn't. That's a big day with chiropractic patients. I didn't make that first call.
Too bad. We want to invite you to come back and be a part of it. But
absolutely.
There are things that are happening around the world. Become a part of something bigger than yourself. And I just want to thank you for being here and sharing this time, Morgan, with us. Listeners, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to share with us. And please, if you like what happened, like us on iTunes, like Morgan's show on iTunes. Also, again, it's the Wisdom for Modern Transformation podcast. Go to his website. You want to tell people what the website is?
Yeah, it's drmorganoaks, OAKS.com.
So Dr. Morgan Oaks, just dr.com. Yep. Go to his website, check out some of the things he's doing, get in touch with him. These people come on the show as a service to you. And I want you to just take advantage of the benefits that they can offer. So thank you again. And until next time, remember, together we're better. Let's practice together. Ciao.